Welcome to another episode of Sports Vibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar, your host. Great week of football in the books, both in college football and the NFL. A lot of upsets, near upsets. I'm wearing an Atlanta Falcons jersey because to beat the Eagles. What a great win. Great hate watch for Giants fans. Saquon Barkley dropped it. I'll talk about all of that from both my fandom perspective and also just an objective perspective. But I'd like to start with some college football first, of course. Let's talk about the big games of the week. Starting off with Georgia versus Kentucky. This was the nightcap on ABC, 7:30 p.m. And Georgia struggled. It seems like they have one of these games every year where they struggle to get off a win, but they still are able to do so. After a dominating opening win against Clemson neutral site and over Tennessee Tech, FCS opponent there, Georgia really they upped themselves in competition going to Kentucky, but still it felt like it should be an easy win. Kentucky got blown out by South Carolina, who also lost a close one to LSU. More on that in a second, but just Kentucky was able to move the ball surprisingly well. Brock Vandegrift bounced back from a terrible performance. The run game was really good. Sumo Baye, their running back, really moved it well. They got a lot of stops. They forced Georgia to a lot of field goals. Georgia eventually broke through. Trevor Etienne making his not a season debut, a second game. But I mean, the Georgia offense was just not their usual selves at all. They really struggled every step of the way. Kentucky as well, 4 field goals. Disappointed in the Mark Stoops call to not, to give the ball back to Georgia when it was 4th and 8 on the plus side of the field. I really thought, or near the plus side of the field, I really thought they should just go for it there. You have nothing to lose. I guess you trust your defense, but the defense just wasn't able to get the ball back. But it's Georgia. It's the number 2 team in the country, formerly number 1. I mean, they have a game like this every year. They had one against Missouri. They had one against South Carolina last year. I believe they had another game last year where they also struggled against Auburn. So, a little bit of an off game for Georgia. Kentucky couldn't quite capitalize. Georgia takes the perfect record, 3-0. They dropped 1 in the rankings, but I expect them to be just fine. I mean, they take on Alabama in 2 weeks. Both teams going into a bye, but Georgia better gear back up because the Crimson Tide are going to be rolling. They just dominated Wisconsin out of conference, their first trip to the Big Ten since 2011, a road game at Penn State. But this time, no issues. Rolling over Wisconsin. Tyler Van Dyke got injured, unfortunately. That really, I think, had a big effect on the game. But Alabama looks really good. I mean, after they struggle against USF, no such issues against Wisconsin at all. Ryan Williams is an absolute stud at 17 years old, able to make some big downfield plays. I mean, Jalen Milroe, very efficient, 12 for 17, 196 and 3 touchdowns, and 75 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. It was just all tied. I mean, stopping Wisconsin on defense. I mean, just what an excellent game from Alabama. It was pretty much over at halftime. I mean, Wisconsin probably could have put up a better fight, but without Van Dyke, it was tough with their backup, Brandon Locke. They didn't really trust him to pass the ball a ton. A few times. Will Pauling caught some passes, but it was really just an absolute domination. And, Wisconsin without Van Dyke, and they're going to have to regroup. I mean, because Big Ten play comes up starting next week, I believe. So, indeed. So it'll be a tough task for the Badgers without Van Dyke taking on some tough teams. But Alabama rolling. They also have a bye, and the Alabama-Georgia game. I expect Georgia to be their usual selves and give them a good fight. I think Alabama might have the advantage now after seeing that. But I'm really looking forward to the clash of the 2 best in the SEC. Staying in the SEC, LSU taking down South Carolina. South Carolina almost had them. Lenora Sellers going for 75 yards, I believe, in a touchdown. Really exciting game. A lot of people thought the Gamecocks could pull out with it, but LSU comes back and steals the deal in South Carolina. So a lot of near upsets in the SEC. I mean, South Carolina looks good. LSU, I mean, needed, a miracle to survive. Georgia needed a miracle to survive as well. So, that's just life on the road in the SEC, even some of the lesser teams. I mean, we've seen Vanderbilt playing well, although they lost to Georgia State. So I mean, it's a competitive league. Even the worst and mid teams in the league are capable of beating the best on any given night. That's just life in the SEC. It's just like the Big Ten. And then finally, another SEC team I'd like to talk about, the Missouri Tigers taking on the Boston College Eagles. Boston College looks pretty good. They lost, but they hung in there against a very good team. Mizzou ranked, I believe they slipped down to 10th in the nation in a loaded SEC conference that dominates the rankings. The new AP poll, Texas 1, Georgia 2, I believe Ohio State 3, Alabama 4, Ole Miss 5, Tennessee 6. A lot of dominating wins. Ole Miss dominating Wake Forest, Tennessee dominating Kent State, Texas dominating UTSA, Texas on San Antonio, and Missouri kind of falling a little bit in the rankings, but still able to hang on. Now they're the 10th ranked team, or excuse me, no, they're the 7th ranked team in the country. My apologies, but Missouri at 7. So just the SEC dominating the top of the rankings all throughout. Yeah, I mean, Ohio State, the only Big Ten team kind of breaking up the jam at the top, but it really is the SEC conference with, like I said, Texas at 1, Georgia at 2, Ohio State 3, Alabama, I believe, is 4, and then number 5 is Ole Miss, number 6, Tennessee, number 7, Mizzou, number 8, Miami, who takes on USF, and then, that's pretty much all I got, and then number 10 is number 9 is Oregon, number 10 is Penn State, and then number 11 USC, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's pretty much the SEC's dominance on college football right now. Going over to the Big Ten, I see Oregon over Oregon State 49-14. This is the first time they really look like national championship contenders. They struggled a bit with Idaho. They struggled with Boise State, a very good Boise State team, but it seemed like they needed time to gel. The first game, they could have scored a lot more points still in the red zone. This time, taking on Oregon State, not a bad team in its own right, but Dylan Gabriel, very efficient, 20 of 24, 291 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tez Johnson, 110. Jordan James, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oregon just absolutely dominated like they were supposed to. Notre Dame with a huge bounce back win over Purdue. Washington losing the Apple Cup to Washington State, so that's a Big Ten team who lost. Indiana looks really good, by the way, over UCLA. Absolute domination there. I believe the final score was 42-17. They look good. Watch out. They might even look better than Michigan. Michigan struggling with Arkansas State. Not really. I mean, they cruised over, but Davis Warren throwing 3 interceptions. It's Orji time in Michigan. That is Alex Orji over Davis Warren, the quarterback for UM. So Michigan gonna get a new quarterback after Davis Warren went 11 for 14 with 3 interceptions. Michigan struggling obviously over against Texas, but lesser competition here in Arkansas State. They had the win. They kind of let the backup score a little bit, but still, I mean, this team's not looking great. I think Khalil Mullings might be the number 1 back in Michigan, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns compared to Donovan Edwards, who's really not been the same player. He's more of a big-time player, but I do like Khalil Mullings a little bit better. UM, I mean, they're struggling. USC coming off a bye week, going to the Big House. So it'll be Alex Orji making his first start for the Wolverines, and it really does feel like, they went all the way to the national championship. They won, and now they're back down to earth. No McCarthy, no Corum. They lost a lot of their defense, lost a lot of their offense. I mean, they're still a capable team, but it seems like it's just, it's going to be a downhill year for Michigan. How far down? Not exactly sure. They play other Big Ten teams like Minnesota, Indiana. We'll have to see how they compare with the rest of the Big Ten, but they're definitely not among the elite anymore. So that being said, another thing I wanted to talk about in the world of college football is the Pac-12 is officially back. Oregon State and Washington State this year representing the Pac-2, basically. Playing with the Mountain West, but they just added a bunch of Mountain West teams. Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State all joining the Pac-12. They need 2 more teams, I believe, but it's huge news as they pick off some of the teams from the Mountain West. UNLV's been playing really good, 3-0 now, including 2 wins over Big 12 teams. I think they would like to join the party, especially after knocking off Houston and Kansas on the road. Las Vegas, University of Las Vegas, they look good. Some other teams in the Mountain West, perhaps. I'm not sure if Clemson and FSU are going to be able to get out of their deal, but I don't really see them going to the Pac-12. But yeah, I mean, they'll probably pick off another team in the Mountain West. But that's pretty much the recap on college football of the week. Great week of college football as always. A lot of, like I said, upsets, near upsets, some close games. A lot of good stuff going on there. Not sure what's going on with Billy Napier. The crowd really didn't like it as the Aggies went on to win 33-20. Not looking good for Florida with one of the toughest schedules in the country. But shifting ahead to next week, some of the games to look forward to. A ranked matchup between Illinois and Nebraska. Illinois ranked after beating Kansas in their second game of the season. Kansas now falling to UNLV to fall to 1-2. Kansas has looked good after struggling for many years. Illinois then beat Central Michigan 30-9. So not looking too great after losing to FIU 52-16, which was maybe a little bit surprising on their part. But sometimes that's just how football works. But in terms of Illinois, ranked at 24. Another, on both of these teams are teams that Rutgers plays later on in the season, but I don't expect Illinois to be ranked for that much longer. But they go into Nebraska to face Dylan Raiola and the Cornhuskers. I expect them to be ranked for a while. They have a good chance of rolling through the table and ending up at Ohio State, ranked on October 26th. First Big Ten game for both of these teams. I'm looking forward to seeing that on Friday night. Under the lights. Some of the other ones, Ohio State returns from bye action to take on Marshall. That should be a good game as well. Some of the other ones, NC State taking on Clemson in the ACC, UCLA, LSU, disastrously bad. Barely squeaking out against Hawaii, getting dominated 42-13 by Indiana. So that's just not exactly the team you want your welcome to the Big Ten from. Some of the other games, Notre Dame against another MAC team, Miami, Ohio. Arkansas State now goes to Iowa State, Georgia Tech taking on Louisville, Buffalo taking on Northern Illinois, who had the huge upset over Notre Dame. USC taking on Michigan, as I mentioned, that's a big game. The official introduction to the Big Ten for USC. Michigan's really struggling. USC probably favored there, but it'll be interesting to see for sure. First time as Big Ten foes, as Trojans are 5.5-point favorites here. Alex Orji making the start for UM. That should be a good game between two of the biggest blue bloods in the sport. Missouri taking on Vanderbilt, SEC play opener. Another ranked matchup between Utah and Oklahoma State in the Big 12, two of the favorites to win that conference. Miami going down to South Florida. South Florida played a really scrappy game against Alabama. I'd like to see how they do against Miami. Should be a good game. Obviously, Miami is going to be the big favorites. 18-point favorites over USF, but be careful. You don't want to sleep against this USF team. Took Alabama to the wire before Bama pulled away, and that's pretty much all the big games of the week. Virginia Tech Rutgers is the other one. First big test for the Scarlet Knights. You can say second big test for the Hokies. A little bit surprised still that they lost to Vanderbilt. They've recovered nicely. As it stands, they're a favorite against the Scarlet Knights. A lot different lines have them at different places, but they're, I believe, a 3.5-point favorite against Rutgers. 3.5 is where I'm seeing it. I feel like it should be lower. I feel like Rutgers should be favored. If not, I say -3 is about right, because but the way I see it, like, Rutgers is able to run the ball very effectively. Virginia Tech isn't able to stop the run. Rutgers beat them last season. They were improved, but it's going to be in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech very improved. Kyron Jones is humming. It'll be an interesting test. I think against Vanderbilt, some things went wrong, but I think they're going to give the Scarlet Knights a tough test. I think the line of 3.5 is just about right. I think it's going to be a close game either way. I like seeing Rutgers in the underdog position, but I do think they should be able to get the win. I'm excited. I'm going to be making the trip down to Blacksburg actually for that one. So first big game of the season for Scarlet Knights, and they get Washington for the Big Ten opener. Looking forward to that. Yeah, and that's going to be the recap of college football. Now shifting over to a loaded week in the NFL. Wow, what a week! I mean, I'd like to do a little every game recap as we used to do on SportsVibe. I was gonna do big games, but I think we can cover all the big games and talk about all the games as well. So to honor the series, here's an every game recap, starting with Thursday Night Football. Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins. I might have to rethink the AFC East because the Bills look good, even without Stephon Diggs, even without off their secondary. They look good. Tua Tagovailoa taking a horrible hit that he kind of headbutted into Damar Hamlin. I really don't think that was Hamlin's fault at all, and 3 interceptions to go along with that. But I wish him the best. In his recovery, he really has to think about whether it's worth playing football because the concussions can keep compounding, and I think that's more important than anything in the game itself. But I thought Buffalo would be maybe third in the AFC East this year. But they look really good. And they look really good. The Buffalo Bills, I mean, they beat Arizona, who looked a lot better, and they beat the Dolphins, who's usually the other best team with Tyreek Hill and Tua and A-Chain and all their guys. But Buffalo 2-0. Watch out, we might have another Chiefs Bills game in the playoffs again. We'll have to see about that. But moving on, Vikings. The Vikings are another surprising team, although they have a lot of guys injured now. They have to be careful about that. But Justin Jefferson with a beautiful 97-yard pass from Sam Darnold. The Niners have lost 8 straight in Minnesota, which I found surprising. And I thought the Niners were one of the best teams in the NFL. They still might be, but no McCaffrey, having him on the injured list really hurts. Vikings, they got 2 wins. I mean, they backed up their game against the Giants, where they humiliated them with a win against the NFC champions, almost the Super Bowl champions. So they're rolling in 2-0, and going to be an interesting race in the NFC North. I mean, you got the Detroit Lions looking to get to where they are. So another game, Seahawks versus Patriots in New England. Geno Smith putting on a clinic, 327 yards and a touchdown, overtime win. The Patriots are playing well ahead of any expectations that they may have had. Jacoby Brissett with 149 yards and touchdown, a clean game. But the Patriots are definitely hanging in there, doing a good job. But I mean, a lot more than what was expected. The Seahawks keeping pace in what should be a tough division, NFC West. But 2 wins in 2 games for Seattle. I mean, they look good. I mean, they could compete with the Niners. The NFC West is going to be a very interesting division as well. And in the AFC East, I mean, we've seen the Patriots be competitive, beating Cincinnati, almost beating Seattle, and the Bills look good. The Jets getting their first win, and the Dolphins 1-1 as well on the season. So that's going to be an interesting race. Now over to my team, the New York Giants, falling to the Commanders. This was interesting. This felt like in game 2 a pulse of the season type of game. I made sure I had to watch it just to see how bad things were for the Giants. Got my answer. They're not going to be uncompetitive. They're not going to be horrible, but as bad as it looked against the Vikings, they really turned things around, put together a competitive game against a Washington Commanders team that the Giants usually beat. Very interesting game on both sides. Daniel Jones definitely improved, not exceptional, but an efficient 178 yards, 2 touchdowns. He completed all the routine passes. He ran with the football. No picks. Devin Singletary had a good game, 95 yards on 16 carries and a touchdown. Malik Neighbors was found in the end zone for a touchdown. Had a ridiculous game. He's really showing off his talent. 127 yards and a touchdown. I would say the best player on that field, even though he dropped what could have been the game winner. On Washington's side, Jane Daniels, 23 of 29 for 226, is very efficient. The run game for Washington between Austin Eckler, in the screen game, Brian Robinson Jr., career high 133 and a couple big ones. Zach Ertz looking like Zach Ertz of old with some downfield catches as well. The thing about Washington is their offensive line. I mean, it kept false starting every time they got to the red zone, and just were not able to punch it in. So it became 7 field goals to the Giants 3 touchdowns. What really cost the Giants and what really bothers me is that Brian Dable didn't elevate a kicker, knowing that Gano was injured. I don't understand how you don't elevate a kicker to the active roster. You have 53 guys on the roster. It's just disgraceful that they didn't do that. And then they put in Gillen, who couldn't make the extra point. They can't even attempt a field goal, and they would have very likely won the game if they're able to get a field goal, or at least given themselves a chance to win the game. Instead, they have to go for it. Malik Neighbors, a very catchable ball, but not the easiest. But I mean, he did everything he could, and he like felt all the guilt and all the pain of the loss. And I mean, I wouldn't be too hard on him. I know he's going to be hard on himself because that's the type of player and person he is. But he really did everything else. He did drop the game winner, which is unfortunate. What could have been the game winner, in that spot to basically you set up it wouldn't have been a field goal. They would have gone right for the touchdown. But unfortunate that they gave Washington the ball and Washington milked the clock. But Commanders 1-1. The Cowboys 1-1, the Eagles 1-1, and the Giants 0-2. But such is life. New York Giants, they're going to be in games. I mean, the defense was good at times. The red zone defense was good. Washington really shot themselves in the foot, but I don't know. Schedule gets a lot tougher. I'm not really looking forward to how the rest of the season's going to go, but at least it's not going to be like they're not going to get laughed off the field like the Carolina Panthers are. And that's a perfect segue to the next game here because the Chargers absolutely dominated Carolina 26-3. Bryce Young is benched in Carolina, sending out Andy Dalton. The Panthers just don't look good. I mean, I don't even know if they have time to throw because 18 for 26, 84 yards, a pick. I mean, Bryce Young hasn't playing well. The line isn't great. I mean, I don't even know who they have at receiver. I mean, they can't find Thielen. I mean, they're playing like an FCS team in the NFL. Like every team should at least be somewhat competitive. I mean, they can't even sustain drives. They can't stop anyone. Chargers rolling 2-0. The Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert combination looking good. Los Angeles, second LA team, 26-3. The next game, how about them Cowboys, 44-19. This one's going to feel good if you're a Cowboys hater, which is pretty much everyone around the country. Dak Prescott throwing 2 picks. Saints look really good. I'm surprised. I was not expecting this. Derek Carr with an efficient 11 for 16, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rashid Shaheed getting down deep. Alvin Kamara with 4 touchdowns, including a reception, I believe, a block extra point, and so 3 rushing touchdowns and a long pass. Alvin Kamara having probably his best game since when he had 6 touchdowns in the Christmas game, but looking really good. The Saints are not going to be an easy team. I mean, they beat the Panthers pretty badly in the opener. Maybe you think that's just Carolina Panthers. They're not going to be able to do that against a better opponent, but they did. I mean, the Cowboys, probably favorites in the NFC East, if not the Eagles, but I mean, they really struggle. The Saints look good, and they play Philadelphia next week, so definitely going to be tuned in for that one. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, a bit of a struggle there. Home loss, unusual. It's all about bouncing back, I guess. But Saints look like they might be in the NFC's elite. NFC South, the division that a lot of people don't, think is the least in the NFL. I mean, they're playing good this year. I'll say that. Outside of the Carolina Panthers, the Buccaneers are 2-0. The Saints are 2-0. The Falcons are 1-1. More in them a little bit later. But Colts taking on the Packers. 16-10. Malik Willis in the game. His debut after Jordan Love, suffered MCL injury against the Eagles. Anthony Richardson did not look too great. 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. Malik Willis played a game manager role very well. 12 for 14, 122 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs, a monster, 151 yards on the ground. Green Bay able to hang on, build a 13-0 lead. And then which eventually became 16-3, and the Colts get a late touchdown, but that's all she wrote up in Lambeau. So successful home opener for the Packers, and they're going to need that to keep pace in a very crowded NFC North. As I mentioned, the Vikings, the Lions, even the Bears with Caleb Williams, but the Browns bouncing back after their loss to the Cowboys. Deshaun Watson played a better game, 22 for 34, 186 yards. Not too much to say about this one. The Jaguars are 0-2. Trevor Lawrence, 14 for 30, 220 yards. Kind of a low-scoring affair. Cleveland built a nice lead, 16-3, 16-10. Jaguars closed in on them, 16-13, but then the Browns iced it with a safety. So defensive battle. The Browns defense is expected to be very good. Something to keep an eye on, especially when the Giants go there next week. But shifting over to the other New York team, the New York Jets taking on the Tennessee Titans, 24-17, getting the dub. Aaron Rodgers' first win with the Jets, he made just enough plays, 18 for 30, 176, and 2 touchdowns. And the Jets have long looked for a quarterback who can efficiently, move the ball down the field. And, yes, it was a lesser opponent, the Titans, and Will Levis has just had awful turnovers. But, the Jets, they've had everything else. They have a good defense. They have Breece Hall. They have Garrett Wilson. They're able to put it all together. Braylon Allen looks good as well. They got everything they need. So with Aaron Rodgers healthy, the experiment's working out to at least a sufficient example. They're not going to be Super Bowl champions or anything, I don't think, but I think they're at least going to look like a competent football team, and I think that's what you want to see if you're a Jets fan. Because they have, like I said, they have strong defense, strong run game, good receivers. They have what it takes. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. Not as great as he used to be, but certainly more than capable, and got a good connection with Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and the Jets get their first win of the season in Tennessee. The Bucs taking on the Titans, the Lions. First loss for Detroit, a rematch of the divisional from last year. Between the same two teams in the same stadium. This time, Jared Goff with 2 picks. Busy day through the air, 34 of 55. Jahmyr Gibbs, 13 carries, 84 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown with 119. But it was the story of the day is Tampa Bay looking good. 185 yards for Baker Mayfield and 12-19, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 34 yards and a rushing touchdown, and 117 yards for Chris Godwin through the air. Tampa Bay getting off to the early lead, Lions coming back, Bucs scoring a touchdown, the Lions getting ahead, and then the Buccaneers icing it on a Baker Mayfield 11-yard run. These two teams could be playoff teams. We could see both of them again in the playoffs. But like I said, crowded NFC South. Saints look really good. They're going to be the favorites. Falcons look good as well. So do the Buccaneers. It's interesting. NFC South is really coming out of the cellar of the NFL. But another team that I didn't expect to be 0-2 is the Baltimore Ravens. Really surprising. I thought they'd be able to pull it off, but Vegas looked pretty good. This is what you're expecting. You got Devontae Adams, 110 yards and a touchdown. Gardner Minshew looking like the Gardner Minshew of all, 30 for 38, 276, a touchdown, a pick. Lamar Jackson, 247, touchdown, a pick. Derrick Henry, 84 yards and a touchdown, and then Zay Flowers, 91 and a touchdown. Low field goal game early on. Teams exchanging field goals. Justin Tucker puts them up 9-6 at the half. Then they start scoring touchdowns. Baltimore up 23-13 early fourth. Vegas comes back to tie the game later after a field goal on the touchdown on a long drive. And finally, Daniel Carlson ices it from 38 yards out. Baltimore losing by a toe against Kansas City now finds himself 0-2. Just like the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll get to them in just a second. The Cardinals, though, look good in the NFC West, and absolute domination of the Rams. Wasn't really expecting it after they fell to the Bills, although that was a close game. But after not being able to find Marvin Harrison was an absolute stud. A couple gorgeous passes. One of them, I believe, on a comeback route, another one burning the defender. 2 touchdowns in the first quarter for Marvin Harrison. He finished with just 4 receptions, but 130 yards, looking like the Ohio State Marvin Harrison that had him drafted that high. James Conner, a big day on the ground as well, 122 yards and a touchdown on 21 carries. Kyler Murray, an efficient 17 for 21, 266 and 3 touchdowns. 2 of those going to Marvin Harrison. Blake Corum now on the Rams with 8 carries, 28 yards. Not a great rushing performance. Not a really great performance by anyone. Matthew Stafford, 19 for 27, 216. Demarcus Robinson, 2 receptions for 50, but dominated by the Cardinals. I mean, they're going to make noise in this division this year. San Francisco better watch out. It's going to be an interesting race. Seattle better watch out too. The Arizona Cardinals haven't looked this good in a long, long time. But Kyler to Harrison, that combination looking really nice. Rutgers alum Max Melton playing corner on their defense. Let's go to the game of the week. Maybe one of the games of the week. One of the two 1-point wins by a team. The Chiefs versus the Bengals. Joe Burrow and the Bengals didn't look good at all against the New England Patriots, but they turned that all around against Cincinnati. Against Kansas City, they came into play. I mean, one of the few players to have a winning record against Patrick Mahomes is Joe Burrow, and he showed exactly why, finding the end zone. A couple of times, I mean, moving the ball well to the tight ends, Mike Gesicki, Adam Sample, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then the beautiful one throw to Andre Yosevas, a Filipino-American receiver. Kansas City answers right back. Rashee Rice, a 44-yard touchdown. And then Cincinnati gets off a couple field goals. The Chiefs have a nice drive ending with a Wanya Morris offensive tackle catching in the end zone. And then Cincinnati answers with Andre Yosevas again after the deep ball to Jermaine Burton. The pick of the year, Cam Taylor-Britt with a OBJ-like one-handed snag against Kansas City on defense. So I mean, the Bengals are really like in this game. I mean, pushing them every step of the way. Getting stops, red zone defense, getting the lead, answering them on touchdowns, long drives, and then the pick, and then the Kansas City comes up with the strip sack on Joe Burrow, and Chamari Connor able to pick it up and return it, unable to get the 2-point conversion. Cincinnati answers with the field goal from 53, Evan McPherson, but the Chiefs end it on a buzzer-beating 51-yarder after a penalty got the Chiefs in the field goal range, kind of similar to the AFC Championship game. Defender was there early, pass interference called, and the Chiefs get out of Kansas City with a win, knocking off the Bengals. But so the Bengals are 0-2, but they showed life, they showed fight, and typical Cincinnati Bengals starting 0-2, but the Chiefs this year starting 2-0, but a very close game. The Chiefs escaped 2 thrillers against solid AFC North opponents. Probably the two of the best teams they'll play all season, although the Saints come into Kansas City on a Monday night in October, and suddenly that game looks really good. We got a Super Bowl rematch with the Chiefs going to San Francisco on October 20th. A lot of really good games this year. And then the Falcons, who just beat the Eagles, hosting them on Sunday Night Football. The Chargers look good. So the Chiefs can have a tough schedule. They also play the Bills. They get a bye week against the Panthers. No offense, but some really interesting games for Kansas City, especially the Falcons, the Saints, and then the 49ers, the Chargers being the other game in that stretch. They play the Buccaneers. So they play the NFC South. They play they play the 49ers, Super Bowl champs. They play the NFC South and I believe the AFC North as well. So some big games coming up for Kansas City, but I believe they had 2 of their biggest tests very early on the season, winning both of them, close wins against the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals. But moving on to the Steelers versus the Broncos, 13-6 win by Pittsburgh. DeBo Nix just does not look good at quarterback, 2 picks. Even though he had 20 for 35, 246, the Broncos offense not really hitting. Darnell Washington catching a 5-yard pass from Justin Fields. It looks like Justin Fields, it's working out there. I thought they were going to go with Russell Wilson. No matter. Able to get a 13-0 lead, and the Broncos able to notch a couple field goals, but not nearly enough. Texans Bears, Caleb Williams, 2 picks, not really looking as good in the NFL as he did in college. CJ Stroud, 260 yards and a touchdown. Kind of a low-scoring game. The Texans definitely look to be the better team. Looks like Caleb Williams and the Bears going to have to go through some growing pains here. Not exactly looking like his usual self, although he did have 174 yards and 44 on the ground. It wasn't really too great of a game for Chicago, but the Texans now 2-0. They look good. And that finally brings us to the last game of the week. It is Falcons versus Eagles, and oh man, I was just thrilled to see this. Started out like a pretty normal game, back and forth. Jalen Hurts actually had a solid game, 183 yards. through the air, a lot more on the ground. I mean, it was kind of a back and forth affair. Jake Elliott put the Eagles up 10-9. Darnell Mooney with a beautiful 41-yard pass, burning the defender on that play, getting into the end zone, failed 2-point conversion. The Eagles moved the ball, get into the end zone, and get a huge stop on the fourth down. It looked like CJGJ took his helmet came off. They got a huge stop there. I thought that might be the game, milk the clock, but just a horrible mismanagement by Philadelphia Eagles towards the end of the game. They looked like they were going to have to win, but they had to settle for the field goal. I don't understand why you wouldn't run the football, take time off the clock, and then kick the field goal. Take 40 seconds off. That's a huge 40 seconds, even if they don't get the first down. But, Philly tried to get too cute with it, threw a screen pass to former Giant Saquon Barkley, who ends up dropping a much easier pass than Malik Neighbors. And, okay, I mean, you dropped the pass. I mean, so a bad call by Nick Sirianni, worst execution by Saquon Barkley. They get the field goal. Then the defense, there's no pass rush. Kirk Cousins is all day to throw. The secondary is not even covering guys, just leaving guys wide open in the soft zone coverage. And Atlanta able to drive all the way down. Drake London catching the pass in the end zone to put the Falcons up and give them the lead. Beautiful route running there by Atlanta. Kirk Cousins putting on a 2-minute offense clinic. Still left some extra time. Unsportsmanlike penalty made the extra point 48 yards. Young Aku still makes it. Atlanta up 22-21. Eagles have 2 timeouts, just need a field goal, and they still don't get it after completing pass to Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts throws an interception that was forced. He got hit. Didn't have to throw that far. Still at timeouts. Trying to go for the home run, play hero ball, gets picked off by Jesse Bates, and that's all she wrote. So what an epic collapse by the Philadelphia Eagles. As a Giants fan, you love to see Saquon Barkley dropping the game-winning catch. But it really falls on the entire team. It's not just Saquon Barkley. It's not just one play. I mean, you make a mistake, But I mean, the way the Eagles just collapse because of it. I mean, you call a bad play, you drop it. You still have to. You still have the 6-point lead, and you just have to prevent Atlanta from getting into the end zone. The defense just was so soft, and the coverage was so bad. It was just like the Eagles just gave up on the game after one play went wrong. I mean, Atlanta carved them up, and it looks like that secondary still needs a lot of work. And on top of all of that, you get the ball back and you have a chance to win the game, and Jalen Hurts tries to do too much and throws a pick. I mean, it's just an epic collapse by the Philadelphia Eagles, and fans let them hear it on the way out. Just a really disappointing loss if you're an Eagles fan. Obviously, if you're not an Eagles fan, probably felt pretty good if you're rooting against them. But Kirk Cousins overcoming the primetime demons, putting together a game-winning drive against Philly. Just a lot of miscues. Like I said, bad call, bad execution. But I think the defense softening up and allowing the score, I think that's even more disappointing. And then the way the game ended. I mean, you just can't keep making mistakes after mistakes and expect to win a football game in the National Football League. If you're going to give the Falcons the game on the silver platter, they're going to take it. And there's not really much else for me to say other than, as Kirk Cousins would like to say, you like that, because I definitely like that. Go Falcons, rise up, the whole 9 yards. But what a great win for Atlanta. What a horrible loss for the Eagles. And that's a great way to segue out of this segment. And I'm going to try something else to end this episode. It's going to be an every game preview. Haven't really done that one before, but since I'm calling all the shots on this podcast, I think it'd be a good idea. Why just preview 5 games when you can preview all of them? So we'll start with Patriots versus Jets on Thursday Night Football. New York Jets hosting New England. It's the home opener for the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers. Well, it's not his debut, but it's his season home opening debut after what happened last year. It'll be nice for Jets fans to see, but it should be a good game because the Patriots have looked really good these first couple of weeks as well, beating the Bengals and losing to the Seahawks. So definitely not going to be a game. Both teams probably very evenly matched. So, short week here. This game starts 8:15 on Thursday. I'm looking forward to the divisional clash. Should be a good one. The Giants going to Cleveland 0-2. The Cleveland Browns defense is really good. The quarterback battle might not be the best with Daniel Jones taking on Deshaun Watson, but I mean, at the end of the day, the Browns defense is going to be really good. The Giants looking for their first win. Not going to be the easiest game for the Giants, but also not going to be the hardest. I would say after coming close against Washington, if they can get a win, they should definitely try to get one because I think they'll need one. I'm sure they'll have a kicker this time, but it depends. I think the Browns will hold them off, but they both showed improvement in week 2. Sean Watson did look better, but I still think the Browns win. Hopefully the Giants can get something going because they're going to need it. I think the Browns hold them off with a stronger defense. We'll see if the Giants can keep their momentum going. I think they stay in the game, but the Browns win. Eagles Saints. After falling to the Falcons, they play an even tougher opponent in the Bayou. I think the Saints got this one. Their odds dropped a big time after the stunning loss against the Falcons, and the Saints look very good. I think the Saints get a nice win over Philadelphia. I'm sure I'll be tuned into that one as well. Texans Vikings. Battle between 2-0 teams. Vikings, no Hawkinson. I believe some of their other players are a little bit banged up. Justin Jefferson looks like he's probably going to be able to play. Jordan Addison, maybe not. The Texans with C.J. Stroud looking to build on their start and what they had last season. Should be a good one. Broncos Bucks 0-2 versus 2-0. I think the Buccaneers are going to roll over here. I think Broncos aren't really a good team, especially with Bo Nix, but I think the Bucks are gonna knock them off. Another team that I think is gonna win their next game is gonna be the Packers versus the Titans. That's gonna be an interesting one as well. Malik Willis going against his former team in Tennessee should be a good one. I think the Packers win. They found a way to win against the Colts. I think they do the same going down to Tennessee with Will Levis looking very inept at quarterback. I give Green Bay the edge over there. Bears versus Colts. This could be a way for Caleb Williams to bounce back against the nearby rivals Indiana or Indianapolis, I should say. Colts don't look very good. Neither do the Bears. Get a I think he can show some more of his growth over there. On Chargers Steelers. Steelers now sitting at 2-0 after knocking off Denver and Atlanta. The Chargers also 2-0. It's going to be a good test. Looks like Russell Wilson with the calf is limited. Justin Fields has looked good. I would say the Chargers probably have the edge there. They've looked better. Should be a good one. Last 1:00 game. Shifting to the back half of the schedule here. Dolphins taking on the Seahawks in Seattle. Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa. Well, there is no Tua. It's going to be their backup Skylar Robinson. Seahawks returning home after being victorious in New England. I'd say especially with the backup, Seahawks are going to be the favorite, looking to keep pace in the NFC West. They look pretty good over the Patriots. I think they do the same against the Miami Dolphins. Going on to Panthers versus Raiders. Panthers have looked like the worst team in the NFL. Andy Dalton making the start. Vegas has looked good. I think they get the win over Carolina, but I think Dalton's going to make the Panthers a bit better than they've been the last 2 weeks because what we've seen is just absolutely unacceptable. NFC North clash, Niners, Rams. The Rams not really looking too great after getting blown out by the Arizona Cardinals, but they've also been a very injured team. The Niners losing 1 to the Minnesota Vikings. I think they bounced back on the road in LA. Probably a lot of Niners faithful going to be there. I think they're going to be able to get it done. The Lions taking on the Cardinals. Now this one suddenly looks like a very interesting game. Detroit Lions, with the NFC Championship appearance. Cardinals look really good. I think this could be a very close matchup game. I think the Cardinals have a good chance of pulling off the upset. I really like what I'm seeing here. That being said, I think the Lions do have a chance of pulling this off. This could be potentially America's game of the week, but I think everyone's going to be focused in on Tom Brady in the booth and Ravens versus Cowboys. Ravens are 0-2, looking for their first win in Jerry World. The Cowboys looking to bounce back after a devastating home loss to the to the Saints. So it should be an interesting one there. Two of the better teams in the NFL going at it, and the Cowboys' usual 4:25 game slot. I think what's officially going to be the game of the week, or America's game of the week, is on Fox. Sunday Night Football just got a lot more interesting after the Falcons pulling off a ridiculous win against the Eagles, where Philly collapsed. I already talked about that enough, but now they play a tougher team, Kansas City Chiefs, surviving against the Bengals and the Ravens. They go to Atlanta, unusual place, I guess. Once every 8 years you go to the other conference's home stadium, so should be interesting. Chiefs are 4.5-point favorites. Probably the better team. They're going to be without Isaiah Pacheco for a while. The injury list is already like pretty big considering it's this early in the season. Pacheco, I believe, missing at least 6 weeks on injury. Jaguars taking on the Buffalo Bills on Monday. We got a Monday night doubleheader here, and Commanders taking on the Bengals. Buffalo Bills look pretty good. The Jaguars don't really look too good. Last time I believe the Jaguars got a big upset against the Bills, so that was pretty interesting. But I think the Bills look to handle that. And then Commanders Bengals. Commanders coming off the win against the Giants. Bengals close loss against the Chiefs. I'd say the Bengals are going to be a slightly better team here, but maybe not even slightly. I think there's a great chance for the Bengals to get their first win. Washington's looked inept offensively. Well, not really. They've really struggled in the red zone. They haven't really been able to put touchdown drives together. It's going to be a step up in competition. I think Cincinnati, after playing with their hair on fire against the Chiefs, I think they're going to get a win and start stacking them because they got the Panthers the week after. But yeah, I mean, the Giants also playing the Cowboys in week 4 and the Falcons taking on the Saints. Some of the good games early the week after in week 4, but we'll get to those next week. In the meantime, this has been another episode of Sports Vibe. A lot of great coverage around the college football world and the NFL. A lot of great games. Nice to go through full previews and reviews of every NFL game from this past week, and look to keep that going. But in the meantime, this has been another episode of Sports Vibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar, and as always, we'll see you next week.